This is the culture.
Welcome back to the Cinema Wave podcast. It is I, Vinny Albano, and we today are talking about Invincible Season 2, Part 1. The first 4 episodes aired on Amazon Prime. I am your host, and I will be joined by...
Mark Jacobino. Hi, everyone.
And...
Michael Peniston. Hi, everybody.
Today should be a very good conversation. The three of us have basically formed a small little crew within the Culture Wave Media group. We are now the animation crew. We've kind of adopted this name in our text group chat, the Animation Domination Crew.
Yeah.
So if you guys are tuning into any future videos and you see us three or a combination of any of us two or any of us three, we will most likely be talking about animation. So let's get into this. This. So Invincible. I want to hear your guys' overall thoughts because Season 2, Part 1 blew me away, honestly, personally. Wow. I'm in love with the first season.
Wow.
Because that, especially like the ending episode really tied everything up incredibly. And, you know, that final fight with Mark and Omni-Man is gut-wrenching. It is extremely powerful to me. I think it means a lot too because it's very personal, the relationship with him and Omni-Man, his father. And I thought Season 2 really it added on to that. We saw in episode 4 such a deep just introspective into not only Mark but also Omni-Man. And then also seeing more of the superhero world being built upon and the darker sides of the superhero world and the morality being questioned. I'm loving it thus far. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll pass it over to you, Mikey, since you're more of a superhero person. I'm here for the animation. I really appreciate the show, but I definitely want to give you the floor first.
No, okay. No, I definitely appreciate Invincible in this show just because I feel like it is different. It's different in the fact that we are witnessing like this kid, you know, and it's very similar to like a lot of other superheroes that we've seen, like Spider-Man and things like that, you know. But like, there's just something about Invincible that kind of sets it apart from other sort of superheroes, and just the animation alone I feel like also kind of benefits this too. But going into the season 1, I kind of had a weird kind of love-hate relationship surprisingly with Season 1. I thought that there were so many powerful moments, so many good moments, but there were also a lot of moments that I just like don't even really remember. Like, you know, it was just kind of just slipped by. And like, not that to say that they were bad, but it was just there weren't a lot of as many highs, you know.
Sure.
I do though feel like I have gotten that with Season 2 so far. I feel like, again, it's only been like the 4 episodes that we've seen, but I feel like coming off of what we've seen from Season 1 and especially that last episode, I feel like Season 2 tackled Invincible and his family and his peers and everybody in a way that like it's just like everyone's so vulnerable and it's like it's you're coming at it from a different place now where like you're seeing Mark like not only really stepping into that superhero position but also coming off of knowing that how much trauma is going into being the superhero that he is, which I guess a lot of superheroes kind of they need that trauma in order to become great. But I don't know. It's with Invincible, it's very different, and so
not many superheroes are used to kill people on a train with them getting actually smashed by people's bodies. So yeah, he's got some serious trauma. Yeah. For me, I am coming at it from a little bit of a different perspective, and I'm excited for the conversation because this season has been a mixed bag for me, at least. Okay. I've really enjoyed Mark. I've enjoyed his mom's storyline, and I have at the end really enjoyed Omni-Man. I think that family has really been the nucleus of the show for me, and I think that's the most I've connected with the show. I found that everything else surrounding them has just been a mixed bag for me. You know, the Guardians of the Globe, we see that they're kind of picking up the pieces and trying to become a more cohesive group than what we kind of saw at the end of season 1. And then Adam Eve, I feel like she's been a bit of an afterthought. Not saying that we haven't gotten bits and pieces, you know, about her kind of tumultuous home life, but I do feel like where the story's going, I feel like she kind of is like an off ramp a lot of the time. Like, oh, let's just check in on her real quick, and then we're back to like the main focus of the story.
Yeah.
So I have some gripes around a couple things in the season, but again, I absolutely loved Mark's mom's storyline, Debbie. I think hers is like the heart of this part of the season. You know, just her dealing with her life almost feeling like a lie, and just imagine raising a son with this man for 20 years, and then this man ends up calling you a pet. Like you're like nothing to him. And I just loved her journey in basically the AA group of superhero spouses. I love that and the resolution to it. But yeah, I'll stop right there before I go too far into it. But yeah, I have a mixed opinion on this season, but excited to kind of see where you guys are coming from on a lot of the things. So yeah,
interesting. Very interesting. Because we'll go back to the Adam Eve stuff.
Sure.
Because I have some thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, sure.
And yeah, I don't know if Mikey, you like feel the same way, but we'll go back to that. But let's start off with like you mentioned, the nucleus of the show being the family, the Grayson family. Debbie, like you mentioned, I was just blown away by what they did with Debbie's character. Like I was so heartbroken, being just like seeing her life, and I loved how in every episode of season 2 thus far we got so much more of her perspective. Like her talking to, I forget the speedster's superhero that was part of the Guardians Globe, his wife.
Oh, the green something.
yeah, it was like the not that one. It was the Red Flash. I believe he was Russian. Yeah. However, they were having wine in like the first episode.
Okay.
Yeah,
I got
Debbie
you. Yep.
and the wife of this passed away superhero, and I just thought that was so good, and the visual motif of the cabinet not closing, and it happens at the beginning of the episode, and they mention how the Omni-Man destroyed the house, and these repairmen, they did a good job, but there's like little things that are wrong. And then later in the episode, she's trying to close the cabinet, and she breaks down and starts destroying, and like the glasses, the wine glasses fall everywhere. I thought that was such a great metaphor for like what's going on, because they're trying to their life, their home was destroyed, and they're trying to rebuild it, but there's these little things that you just can't get past, and they're still broken in some way, and they're trying desperately to close that cabinet, but Debbie just can't.
And they're trying to like mask their feelings, and I like you said, I kind of love that it's almost like a teapot kind of like starting to simmer throughout the episode. Like every time the cabinet, and Mark's like, leave it alone, it's fine, and she's like, all right. And then like you said, at the end you finally get the burst, and she breaks down, and Mark comes home and sees her wine everywhere. She's obviously like dealing with her problems by drinking and not really talking to anyone. So yeah, I love the motif of the house being together. They are both still alive, but they haven't really repaired anything yet because they're not talking about it. How about you, Mikey?
It's funny because I actually didn't even put 2 and 2 together while watching it, but that is crazy how symbolic that really was to the what was really going on at hand. I just know that where she is right now is just I don't know. I feel like coming off of season 1, I always reminded me of her her name again?
Debbie.
Debbie. I'm gonna be that guy. I'm gonna be that guy.
I had to look it up today.
But no, coming up season 1, Debbie was always obviously an important character because she was the mother role in that, and like obviously Omni-Man's spouse also, and like what he did and said to her, obviously that played a big role, but she was still kind of just like a supporting character. And so I feel like this season, again, it really pushed her to almost like a main character sort of role, and we got to see the side of her that like I truly really wasn't expecting. And so again, to hear like that symbolicness and to see what she was going through and to see that build up, like you guys said, was, I don't know, it really threw me off. It made me feel kind of it made me break down a little bit. Yeah. I felt for her. And so I don't know. And it was definitely, you could see there was a lot of them now, like you said, there wasn't a lot of conversation in it. There wasn't a lot of tackling that problem. And you could see that they were kind of just sitting in that, what had happened, and they never really even played out in all areas of their life, not even just within the home. And so having that little symbolic moment in the home play a big role in that and showcasing that, I don't know, it's huge. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, totally. And also just talking about Debbie, on the topic of Debbie, going into the other episodes, episode 3, episode 4, the AA meeting. Thought that was super clever too. I love that. Like, I know they did something similar in not something, it reminded me of that scene from Endgame when Captain America is like running the anonymous like meeting for the people who passed away during Thanos' snap. It reminded me of that. And I loved her conversation with the boyfriend of the other superhero that passed away due to Omni-Man's actions. And then her realization that he is that boyfriend. He is that. And like, oh my God. Like, like it just hit. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Just the execution of it, the writing, and how the director decided to present it was just, it hit. And also see episode 4 going when episode 4 opened with like the montage of Omni-Man when he was like very sad after his battle with Mark, and he's like traveling through space, he has the beard, and then it's like cutting back and forth with him and Debbie. I believe so. I could be wrong. It's been a week or two. But there's a moment in episode 4 where they're cutting back to Debbie, and Debbie's just like walking, and she like ends up like standing over this bridge.
Right.
And obviously like, thoughts of taking her life, like, and she's crying, and the song choice they used, I forget what song it was. Oh my God, I should probably have this written down. But that hit me like a truck. I think like all of episode 4 and like focusing on that family dynamic throughout that whole episode, just it really hit.
I think at the end in the episode 4, just to kind of like close out like Debbie's storyline, like I love the line when the guy's, I forget his name, but he's comforting her and he's basically like, you were the strong one, not Omni-Man. Like, that guy's invincible. He can punch a hole through the earth. Like, that's not strong. Like, you were at home with Mark, raising a child, and also dealing with, Omni-Man as a husband and him not being at home all the time. So even though he would fly you to Paris for lunch or whatever, like, you were home most of the time and he wasn't there. And like that line right there, I was like, that's incredible. And I was like, perfect, like, wrap up for her. So I love that. Want to keep seeing more of her. I'm curious where it goes from there, because that does feel like a resolution point, but we know there is so much more healing to get with her character.
And I and going into like those specific moments with her character, and then we could move on to because there's still a lot of characters and the plot to talk about. But one thing that I really liked about those moments with her character where she was out interacting with those other characters, and she had those moments with the other member spouses, and like that big fight that she had, it really showcased just the impact that Omni-Man had on everybody.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like we're seeing a lot of that through oh my god, what's her name again?
Debbie.
Debbie. I'm sorry. What's it called? Sorry. What's it called? But we were seeing so much of that through Debbie's story and obviously Mark's story. But obviously, like, he killed a whole city of people, you know, and like I feel like this whole season kind of showcased and kind of hit hard on the fact that Omni-Man set this whole place in the state that it's in right now, and like everybody in some way or another was affected by it. And so I don't know, I just feel like those moments kind of had even more of an impact this season simply because of that, and again coming off of that last episode. And I don't know if we want to kind of use that to transition.
I think that transitions really well into Mark's story and like how he's dealing with trauma and how he feels like he needs to go out there and work for Cecil like tirelessly instead of moving on in his life and like enjoying college and like being with his friends. Instead, he's like, no, I destroyed a whole city with my dad. Like, I need to go out there. And by doing that, you're not healing because you're just kind of burying it. Like, oh, if I do all these good deeds, it'll atone for it. But really, you just need to move on at that point and, you know, lean on the people you love and care about. And I thought that was great, like, way to show Mark's how he's stuck. You know, Debbie's stuck in this way and he's stuck in this way.
I feel like that all is a testament to how good the writing is in the show. And, you know, people, I feel like now in the modern age, we're lucky enough that people are now taking animation seriously.
Thank God.
But a lot of people,
we need more.
Totally agree. Like, but still, a lot of people don't like take animation that seriously.
Yeah.
But this shows that, like, you know, the superhero genre as well as the medium of animation can be used in such an effective way. Like, seeing just the Debbie and Mark, like you mentioned, like just hide themselves instead of healing. You know, they're running away from their problems, trying to distract themselves. And then how you mentioned how Omni-Man, like the effect on the world. I feel like bad writing would be like, oh, Omni-Man did all this, you know, crazy shit, but we're just never gonna talk about it. It would be like, oh, there's one thing, and maybe, you know, Mark, you know, gets affected by it. But showing that the world itself, like we see on the news that like Omni-Man had an effect. We see with the other characters, like that boyfriend at the AA meeting, had an effect. Like, you know, Omni-Man killed his significant other, and it just seeing all the different perspectives of the characters and seeing that, like you mentioned, like really adds to how much Omni-Man as a character affected the world. And that is just, that's good writing, in my opinion. Like,
they definitely didn't have to give Debbie as much screen time as they did, and I think that obviously would have been the easy way to do it. Like, only Mark's affected because he fought Omni-Man, but instead they're like, no, like there's other people involved in this, not just Mark, even though he is the main character. So yeah, totally agree.
But we could probably use that as like a transition, probably to kind of talk a little bit more about Mark's story this season. I feel like, you know, he did have to kind of take on a lot more now, coming off of the biggest fight of his entire life. You know, the greatest whooping that he's ever gotten, probably. But it made him stronger, you know, and mentally, it definitely put him in a different place, and we're seeing that. And so I feel like, again, the stakes are higher for him. But even just, again, states and even in the sense of him growing up, you know, like we're seeing him and his friends graduate. You know, which is also kind of like, it's relatable, you know, it's you know, like we're, so it's like, I don't know, that kind of has like a little bit more of like a, I guess like a wholesome just kind of like impact to it. But again, we're seeing now like he's coming at a place where now he's becoming, you know, a man, and he's really he's graduated, he's in the real world now. He can kind of really pursue being a superhero, and with that, you know, we are seeing Cecil kind of put him up at hand with a lot of this stuff. And so I don't know if we want to kind of talk about, or if you guys have anything specifically to say.
I have a lot to say. I think for me, though, I think the reason why I feel a little biased towards loving the character of Mark and the dynamics of the characters in the show, and just the show in general, like the reason why I love it so much is because, like you mentioned, like he's just graduated, he's going into college, and I just entered college.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I'm that same age as Mark, and I relate to Mark so much. Like, I'm literally like, while this is airing, I'm going through like the same type of like age that he's like Mark Grayson is. So it hits me so much more. And I feel so much more connected and to the characters. But Mark, like, obviously we have, like we mentioned, how he's trying to distract himself from healing, but he's also getting a lot more edgier. Like this is what's really the little foreshadowing, details. You know, the constant like, oh, you're Nolan's son, you're Omni-Man's son. Like, it's in your blood, right? It's in your blood to be like a Viltrum Knight. And then we see him when he's fighting with Darkwing.
I was just thinking about that. Yeah.
And he's brought into that shadow realm. And then he's like, yeah, I'm Omni-Man's son. Like, I'm, you know, like don't play with me. And then also, I have a just quick theory, too. And we can return back to this. But I mentioned how, foreshadowing to Mark's darker side, Cecil says that he loses him on the little, like, you know, what's it called? The
just like the earpiece thing.
Earpiece thing. Like when he enters the Shadow Realm, Cecil loses him. Like, hey, Mark, I didn't hear you. I must have lost you in the Shadow Realm. I also have a theory of what if he didn't lose him and he's just lying, because Cecil is obviously taking precaution to fight Mark if he ever goes bad. Like we saw him in season 1 take, I believe it was like Omni-Man's blood or hair or something to try to find a way to defeat Omni-Man, some sort of weakness. And he's definitely, knowing Cecil, he's definitely taking precaution. Sure. We saw him taking precaution towards Mark if Mark ever turns bad. And I'm curious if Mark or if Cecil lied about losing him in the Shadow Realm, and that, like, you know what I mean?
Kind of get like an idea of what he's like when he's not being monitored. Is that what you're kind of saying there? Yeah. I think, and I think another just huge piece of foreshadowing is the season opens with an alternate reality where Mark is helping his dad destroy Earth. So like, they're kind of saying right up front, like, this might like happen at some point, which again, a very good way to open the season. Cause I was kind of like, wait, did I completely miss something at the end of season 1? I was like, wait a minute. But then we obviously see it's a different reality. But yeah, no, I like that. I think it's definitely something where it's trying to make us feel it, as an audience, like, oh, is Mark towing the line? I don't think he's that far deep into it, but you know, there is that idea that, you know, are you your parents? Like, are you who you were raised by? And I think that's, again, going to be like a nagging suspicion in his head, in his own head. I think obviously with Shadowwing, is that his name? Darkwing. Yeah, I think like for that, like, I think he could definitely use that, like in a lot of battles in the future. Like he can just psychologically say, like, you don't know how crazy I am. Like, you know my father, you know I'm a Viltrumite, like, you know what I'm capable of. And I think he can use that in a good way, but like you said, there is a possibility that he starts to maybe believe it a little too much eventually.
Yeah. And I feel, I agree. I feel like those breadcrumbs were planted enough in the 4 episodes, the few episodes that we watched, to have that be, you know, like a possibility. And I mean, it's regardless, we all kind of, I feel like coming off of that last episode again, I'm going to keep kind of referencing that last episode because
it was a big one.
It was a big one, yes. I feel like we all kind of knew just the type of people that the Viltrumites were, hearing what his dad was saying while he was actively beating him up. So like we knew like, oh, okay, they're probably all like this. Like, how do we know like there isn't a chance that Mark? And so like now hearing these things and seeing that, and even like you said, like having like the possibility of Cecil not, lying and have heard that. It makes sense.
And isn't it an inherent trait of the Viltrumites to be that way, or is it like a cultural indoctrination? Like, are you only that way if you grow up on Viltrum, or is it the fact that Omni-Man did stay on Earth and Debbie did, in one way or another, possibly change him? I think we get an idea of that in this season. I'm not saying he's fully redeemed, Omni-Man, but I think they are trying to say that there was a change in him. And that's what's also in Mark. But I am curious, just from like a broader universe thing, like, are Viltrumites just naturally like that? Or is it a cultural thing? And maybe that's the question the show's asking. Is it something they learn because they grow up there? Or is it something that is already in their blood? So I think that's like an interesting thing moving forward, possibly.
Yeah, totally. And also, I'd like to mention in episode 4, when they are fighting the other Viltrumites, how... first Mark is getting the shit beat out of him. And then Omni-Man's like, they're trying to kill you. If you want to win, you have to try to kill them. And there's like that switch. And I thought that was like, I don't know what they're going to do with Mark. Like you mentioned, like, I don't know if it's like just in his inherent biology to be like a conquering, like, Viltrum. Or I don't know, but like they're alluding to this darker, edgier side to Mark.
Yeah,
and I'm really fascinated by it right now, and I'm also fascinated how that change in his character is going to affect when he goes back to Earth, because we obviously have Cecil, and then we have the Immortal that stopped him that one night on the street and was like, you're Omni-Man's son. I know what you really are. Right. So like Mark has enemies, he has a lot of enemies just for being Omni-Man's son. So how that edgier side, when it does, if it does come out, like, how it's going to affect his relationship with these other characters in the show.
Yeah. I think I also didn't realize until he had that fight with the Viltrumites that he had never killed anyone or anything, I guess. I guess I never put that together. I kind of figured, like last season, he probably punched someone pretty hard and killed, like even like an alien character, maybe not a human character, obviously, but I didn't really put that together. He's like, no, I don't kill people, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess he hasn't, and he comes close to almost killing this Viltrumite with the braid knife thing. He obviously doesn't end up doing it because his dad has to save him, but he comes close to almost taking a life, and we know like across media, like when you take a life, like your life is different. You're a different person. I mean, just the entire thing with Batman is, once he kills someone, he becomes just as bad as the criminals. So I think that's cool that they bring it into this universe as well.
Yeah. And I feel like even though, like the in that last scene, and I mean, like, I feel like we should probably at some point dissect the last bit of that last episode of 4, because, it is a big part, especially moving into like the next set of episodes. But I do feel like, despite him taking a beating from these Viltrumites and needing a little bit of assistance from his father, it did kind of showcase the potential of Mark being way more powerful than we realized. Like even in those moments, like you said, when like he kind of snapped and like it kind of like for a split second he was kind of going at it, those split moments, like we're remembering that this is still like a kid that just freshly graduated high school, like it's not like these are like the only other experience is his dad, and that wasn't much. And so I don't know, I feel like they could be potentially setting up that idea, like, okay, like maybe Mark in himself, whether it is because he's half human, half because he grew up on Earth, or all of whatever theories we want to throw out there, maybe he is powerful than even his dad, even like we just haven't seen him get to that stage yet.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I feel like that last episode kind of set up a lot more with Mark, and obviously a lot happened. But I definitely agree that we could see a lot more of Mark, especially coming out of this last battle. I don't know if we want to talk about that battle or when we want to talk about, because
I think we could jump into Omni-Man. I feel like we've name dropped him enough. If we could probably hop in.
Yeah. I mean, let's get into it then. Omni-Man, I loved seeing. I know I mentioned it previously before. Seeing that montage of like seeing that real introspection, because I feel like we didn't really see much introspection into Omni-Man's psyche, but seeing at the beginning of episode 4, like him just like traveling the vastness of space, and he's like about to kill himself by like going into the black hole
from Interstellar.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
I was like, that's Interstellar.
And I was like, and that really was fascinating, because it also, Omni-Man might have had been indoctrinated into that Viltrum conquering like mindset, but his experience on Earth, I feel like he was almost gaslighting himself towards like the end of season 1, where it's like, because we saw like, especially like in season 1, where like when he's at Mark's baseball game and Debbie's like, aren't you proud of our son? And then he's being all stern and serious, and he cracks a smile, and like he throws Mark into the air, and we saw that he did genuinely feel happy. There was moments on Earth where he genuinely felt happy within that family. So and then at the end, when he decides to just go crazy, I felt like he was almost gaslighting himself, like no, like I'm a Viltrum, like I'm here to conquer the world, and just seeing that more explored and expanded upon, and we learned that he kind of was, and that he really actually does value family, and now he has a new family with the bugs.
That's crazy.
Which that kind of leads me into my next point, because I just adored episode 4 from beginning to end, and that beginning part where we're introduced that Omni-Man has a new son. The dialogue and Steven Yeun's performance was just holy shit. Like, it was like hitting me, and like, and then Mark is like, and Steven Yeun really captures that emotion, and Mark's just like, fuck you, and just them going back and forth, and like, I don't like having to care now for a new life, but this new life is from a father that you despise now, but this new life is innocent, and just all of season 4, seeing the introspection on Omni-Man, just loved it, absolutely adored it. Sorry, I'm gonna bring it back to you guys, but I just want to make one more point.
Keep going.
I know we mentioned how like some people don't take animation seriously.
Yeah.
And I was actually watching this in my living room at the time on my TV, and my mom like walked in for a moment, and it was during that scene where like Mark is just like yelling at Nolan, and my mom goes, "Wow, this is one serious ass cartoon."
Right.
And I'm like, yeah. It is. There's more to animation than what people think it is.
Yeah, I think that's, just outside of Invincible, that's the inception of this group coming together to talk about animation more for Cinema Wave and Culture Wave, just getting it out there that animation is more than just cartoons, highlighting things that maybe people don't know about. Obviously Invincible is a huge series, most people know about it, but if we can just like make animation a less underappreciated medium, like it's an art form, it's not just for kids, like that's like the whole reason we want to do this. So I'm excited for that, just outside of the Invincible conversation to keep going on that. But Mark, my favorite line of the season is when Mark is like, I'm not. Don't put that on me. I'm not the one who fucked a grasshopper or something. Something like that. It was like I was like, oh my god, that's so perfect. Because yeah, it's crazy. Because Omni-Man is almost like, no, Mark, you have to help me. You have to help these people. Like he's gaslighting him. He's like, you have to help these people. He's like, dude, you brought me into this. Like, why are you doing this to me? Like, I didn't choose to have another family. I didn't choose to do this. Like, and the Viltrumites show up. They're like, you had another kid. Like you did this to yourself. You brought us to this world, and like that's true. And maybe that's a deeper look into Omni-Man's psyche. Like he can't help himself but to look for connection and love, but somehow he can't fully embrace it. I mean, here we see on this world he is trying, but you know, there is another piece of me that's like, but is he really redeemed? He does bring Mark out here to fight, and it's like he clearly shows he can beat all of the Viltrumite. Like he kills all of them himself, even though Mark helps him and distracts one of them. Like Omni-Man shows he can kill all of them by himself, so there is a seed there that's planted. Like, why did he bring Mark out there? Is it part of a larger plan? This was a conversation I had with my friend. Like, is he almost breeding with different species to eventually make some sort, not army of his children, but like have children that can overthrow the Viltrum government because maybe he doesn't believe in it anymore. But like, you have to kind of think like, why would he do that? Like, you know, the Viltrumites would come and try and kill this new planet. You knew. Like, why would he do that? Like, and it's a grasshopper. Like, come on, were you really that attracted? Like, there has to be like maybe an underlying motivation, or it's the psyche thing. Like, he just needs connection. He doesn't know how else to show it. So I don't know.
And then kind of going off of honestly both of those, like even if it wasn't said and planned, like who's to say it just won't happen again? Right. And I kind of also with that asked that question: do you guys think that he's actually dead or going to be dead? Because there is the episode ends, you know, at this place where and I kind of want to get back into his psyche a little bit because it's crazy. That's a lot. That's an hour-long conversation itself. But what's it called? We do see this moment where like he has taken off, and like that's where we're kind of left with his character, and like we hear that he's gonna be killed, and that's where Mark is left to believe. Do you guys actually believe that? Because I'm curious off the top of my head now if that's something that you guys think.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know because like the way they ended episode 4, like there's so many open-ended questions, and like I'm just fascinated because they could take any direction. I think Omni-Man is going to die at some point. At some point or the other. If Mark is gonna, because the Viltrumites took Omni-Man, is basically planning his execution now. Maybe Mark intervenes and like saves his father, and then has another internal conflict of morality. Like, wow, like he's my dad, but also my dad is someone that I've disapproved of. Yeah, obviously, because he's done some really, fuck shit. But it's that I think that's what I'm betting on. That's gonna happen is where like Mark is gonna try to intervene in the execution of Omni-Man, and it's gonna be like this whole like inner moral conflict with Mark. But I think Omni-Man is going to die, definitely at some point in time. Okay. Maybe not at that execution that they're planning, but I have a feeling, he's definitely gonna die.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, they leave a lot of questions open. Like, is Mark, because now Mark has like a 3-way crossroad here. He's like, does he go and try and intervene with the Viltrumite execution? Because they obviously like show him mercy. They're like, you're still a Viltrumite, like we're cool with you. All you have to do is go, kill. I think he said like you only have to kill like 1 or 2 people on Earth. Like you don't have to kill everyone or something like that. But then you also have this child, this like half brother with the insect people. Does he bring him back to Earth and raise this little brother kind of in the place of Omni-Man? I think there's so many ways they can go about this. I don't think Omni-Man will die this soon, like you said, by execution. I don't think he will. But I think it is setting up to maybe like a bigger political kind of storyline with the Viltrumites and
yeah.
the council that, you know, we can probably talk about a little bit later with Alan, like that council he reports to, and we see that there's moles in that are succumbing to the Viltrum Empire. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I hope Mark takes the kid and goes back to Earth and doesn't follow Omni-Man. But again, there is that piece of him that's probably like, there's a chance to rekindle this with my father. Maybe I should do that. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I feel like I really did kind of ask that question, and all of those questions were kind of left at state. There's a lot at state for what happened next. But as far as like the whole death thing, I really do ask that because I know myself, I don't think he's dead. I agree. I think that I could see him dying sometime soon. I could see that build up. But I don't think he should be dead. Simply going, like I said, going back to that whole psyche. I feel like we haven't even touched like fully like the whole scape of that mind yet, and like there is, I feel like there's still enough of his character, and like even in like maybe like you said, Mark going after and seeking like that Kindle ship again. If we see that, if that kind of happens, you know, I don't know. I feel like there's so much to not even just Omni-Man as a character, but just like the relationship that, because like he still has that relationship. He just left. You know, so like he still like with Debbie, he still has the relationship. Obviously, it's broken, and like that's how it was left for a lot of people. But he just up and left. So I feel like we still haven't fully saw like the complete story with Omni-Man. So I can see that happening, but I really had asked that question just because I know myself, I don't want him to be dead.
And the books, the last thing he says is like, read the books, and like I guess that'll be really cool to see like what kind of message is in the books. Like, did he actually leave something to Mark if it ever came to this or something along those lines? And I just have no idea what they're going to do with that, but I think it's pretty cool to kind of tease moving forward.
No, 100%. I was actually going to bring that up too. Like, do they like, is there a secret way to defeat the Viltrum Empire in those books?
Oh yeah, that's cool.
That would be crazy. That would be crazy.
I think, unless you guys have any other thoughts on the topic at hand, I do want to. Do you guys? Or
no, we can kind of go to the broader like storylines outside the family. I think it was good to just like start and do the family first, and then we can jump into other stuff.
I do want to get into like the other plot threads they're exploring. They have the relationship with Beast Girl and Robot. We have Donald, of course. We have the shapeshifter slash
Martian
the Martian. And then Adam Eve, which let's start with Adam Eve. Because I know you before said she felt like sidelines.
Yes.
For me, I could understand where you're coming from 100%. But I actually really loved her, like what we've seen of her, and I think they're going to explore her more in the second part. But I just love how she's basically retired from superheroing, and she's trying to go back into it and trying with good intentions helping people, but it's not working. Like almost everything she does has failed, like and it just is like a boomerang, and it hits her back in the face. And for example, when she's making the park, right, and she builds that park out of nothing, and then we find out that the people she was intending to help got hurt, and it adds to the world of like the world of Invincible and the gray morality behind superheroes and their actions. And even though they're trying to do it for good, there is severe consequences when they're not careful enough. And I really like Adam Eve's character. I relate to her, and I feel for her, and I'm actually really excited to see more of her in the second part, because seeing that and then seeing how her powers have also created that large disconnect between her and her family. And then on top of that, like the last instance we had with her was the battle with that robot guy that keeps popping up throughout the show. And then the bridge is getting destroyed and people are getting hurt through, she had good intentions, but it's not coming out the way she wanted it to.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what you said about Adam Eve. I think it connects well with that special we got between season 1 and 2 that just solely focused on her. I just think maybe the structuring of her storyline was a bit odd in certain places, like in the last episodes, episode 4, when Omni-Man and Mark are fighting the Viltrumites. I felt like when they cut away to her storyline during this really intense battle, and character moments between Mark and his dad, it just felt awkwardly put in there, and I think that was kind of for me at least throughout the season, that's how it felt. So maybe it was more the structuring of her story and less about what actually happens, because I agree with you. I think everything that does happen is relevant to what's going on in her life between her parents and her, and how her powers are. She wants to do good, but in the pursuit of doing good, she inadvertently does bad things. So how about you, Mikey?
I definitely feel like to a degree she was sidelined. I feel like a little bit. I maybe that is because we got a special with her, and so they probably felt like maybe they could do that. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of her. I loved the special personally. I thought it was like a really cool look on just like outside of like her parents, and really seeing that obviously just like her siblings and like that whole sort of storyline. And I feel like I kind of made her into who we're seeing a lot of who she is now in the show, and so I appreciated that. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. I also feel like bringing back up the how the season started, where like we saw like the whole like little like what is it, I forget what they called it exactly. But it was like when Omni-Man and
like she had the shaved head and she like fought back, right? A different reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, got it.
And like she kind of came like very aggressive with it, and so I was kind of like picturing, okay, maybe she is honing more into like the superhero, especially coming off of what Omni-Man had done. So I kind of seeing that intro and then seeing her get sidelined a little bit more. I do wish that we got a little bit more of that.
Yeah.
I still do appreciate though her character in this. I feel like her character helped play a little bit more of a role in that impact that Omni-Man had again on everybody. Like when that whole scene with she's trying to repair the Chicago the apartment building, and like they all were really happy about it, but then you find out that it ended up collapsing. I don't know. And so like that's something that now Omni-Man in some way it started it, but like now it's trickling down and she's having an even more effect on it. And so I feel like those small parts that we got with her were still appreciated. But I'm not holding out, and this could just be a theory. I'm not holding out from the idea that what we saw in the beginning, yes, it was a different reality, but the fact that they chose to open with that, how do we know that something like that might not happen? That something like that isn't happening on all of the realities, because I mean, the villain in this season, he kind of got a glimpse at all those worlds, and every world he saw Invincible kind of being a threat. And so who's to say that like we couldn't get to a place where even Adam Eve has to kind of step up, and that version that we kind of saw in that beginning, like maybe she still could become in this. And so I don't know, it's a theory, but like if you chose to start that way, who's to say that it can't come full circle?
It's a theory, and it's a good segue. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, if we want to jump into the reality jumping guy, Angstorm. We talked about trying Angstrom, whatever his name is. We can jump into that. What did you think of that, Vinny?
Yeah, so it's really hard to judge as of right now, because we only got the first 4 episodes. It's mostly just set up to whatever's going to come in the next 4 episodes. But I'm not gonna lie, I think multiverse stuff is kind of getting really exhausting.
Oh, thank God you said it. Thank God you said it.
Because dude, multiverse, it's like every movie, every franchise is now doing multiverse. I hope that Invincible, like I said, it's hard to judge as of right now. I hope Angstrom, however you pronounce it, yeah,
big brain guy,
yeah, big brain, yeah. I hope
mega mind.
I hope he can, like, I hope they basically write it in a very unique way, or they are less focused on like, oh, let's bring this variant in, and let's bring that variant in. But I do like the conception of Angstorm as a villain, like how he's created, because he brings together like this league of versions of himself. And he mentions how in every other universe, Invincible like teams up or becomes bad, teams up with Omni-Man or becomes a villain in some sort of way. And then when they kind of all fuse into one, it's that whole idea of like, sorry.
Yeah.
It's that whole idea of that, if you have, let's say, 99 people that say it's bad, but only one person says it's good, the 99 is going to heavily outweigh the one. However, that also brings into a theory of like how his conflict may be resolved later on. There is that one version of him somewhere in that big brain that thinks Invincible is good, so maybe they can like reach deep into that big brain and like be like, no, Invincible is good in this universe. But then again, he's also traveling to all these other universes, seeing the current state that they're in, and they're in a pretty bad state, as we saw him travel to that one universe where there was a woman version of Cecil and Donald, and Mark is tied up and he's obviously like bad in that. I don't know, it's really hard to judge his character, but I do like the concept of him. But I think I don't want the multiverse thing to get exhausting, because in every other media that's coming out right now, it is getting exhausting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I rolled my eyes when he said, "Oh, I traveled from." I'm like, no, don't say it. Don't say another universe. I do agree. I like the concept of his character saying, "Oh, I go to each universe to figure out what they figured out. Like this universe cured cancer. Okay, I'm gonna take what they did to cure cancer, bring it to this one." Like, and I like that concept. I thought that was like a really interesting way of using the multiverse. But yeah. I rolled my eyes when it was multiversal. I really hope they don't go deep into it. Unfortunately, I think they probably are setting up to be that way. It is early. Again, it is very early to make a decision on what's going to happen with this character. But the other thing I didn't love about the character was when Mark does show up to kind of stop him, and the twins, like all those different twin variants, like start just beating the shit out of him, and he's like dying, and then he's like, I won't have my empire created on bloodshed. And then he takes off the helmet, and that's when he gets like mutilated. And then he's like, Invincible did this to me. It's like, I mean, you decided to take off the helmet because you didn't want him to get beaten up and die. It's his fault for getting beaten up? I was like, I thought that connection there was pretty weird. But, again, there is that idea that there is more than one person in the head. So maybe that was a different version that was disagreeing with that other one. So, it's early, but for me that was a little odd. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think, Mikey. Another multiverse.
I actually am. I'm also tired of the multiverse. Our last conversation we spoke about Scott Pilgrim, and that also tackles the multiverse. Wow. So this is the second conversation with multiverse. I'm over it. But his character, I am intrigued with his character. I like the idea of, aside from the different versions of him, just him as a person. Just like at this point, he's bold to even want to step up against like any Viltrumite, whether it is Invincible or Omni-Man, and so I appreciate that in this character. But I also I am curious, and I do like the fact that through him and him being involved in the multiverse, we are getting a glimpse at, like we kind of, you guys mentioned, these other versions of Invincible and Omni-Man. I don't want to see too much of them. I like focusing on our main. Yes. But it kind of plays into even the whole how far can they go, and how powerful can Mark really get? Like these other versions of him, if he's teamed up now with his dad, I'm sure that like he's had a little bit more training, a little bit more, experience, and so he's probably leads ahead of the Mark that we have, all these other Marks. And again, I don't want to touch too much on that, but I do like the idea of getting glimpses of what our Mark could become. And knowing that, oh snap, if all of these Marks are bad and they have all in some way turned at some point, again, how do we know that our Mark isn't gonna do that? And so it's all of these things I feel like are connecting. They are fully connecting, and I'm definitely curious to see how they use what's his name again exactly? It's
Angstrom. I can never pronounce words.
You shouldn't have asked. You shouldn't have asked.
Angstrom.
I have no idea.
But I'm curious to see how they choose to utilize him. And again, that intro kind of set a stake for me. And now having him be the one that is allowing us to see into these realities, and I don't know, he plays a crucial role, and I feel like we've only seen a very little bit of what a impact he could potentially play on the Viltrumites. But it's kind of early, it's early to say. But I'm intrigued. I am.
We'll say intrigued for now.
For now, yes.
How you mentioned though, how like the writing is it's you're setting up these alternate universes, and that is foreshadowing, and it's coming back into like the perspective of if Mark is just inherently going to become bad. That kind of sways me into the direction of other subplots here, because I feel like a lot of season 1, I feel like the episodes that people don't remember as much, they still serve a significance in the vast story. Because like for example, oh my god, I forget his name, but the guy who's like he had like the volcanic powers,
like seismic something.
Something seismic. And he he feels kind of like a throwaway in the first, and then he kind of is a throwaway in the second season too. But like, those ideas that they're setting up are coming back. Most specifically, and this kind of leads me into the next topic, when Mark in season 1 goes to Mars,
right?
And then we're hinted that a Martian has come back to Earth, but now in season 2, it's finally explored upon. So I personally feel that like even the things that don't feel as memorable feel like kind of throwaways. They're if we just like hold on to them to like tight enough, they're eventually going to come back later in the story, because I feel like that's the most common pattern thus far, is that they're going to come back and they're going to be explored upon. So the Martian, I really like his scenes. I think they're very funny. That common like fish out of water trope. It's very like wholesome. And what do you think his significance is going to be in the story? I know it's a little early to judge, but what are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I don't remember like too much about the Martian story. I know that they have the face huggers kind of thing, and then they take over. And I know it was like hinted to be like a really bad thing like last season. I feel like at the end there was like a montage and it showed like an army of them or something like that. So obviously, it's going to build up to that, but it is funny to see that he doesn't have any ill intentions. It doesn't seem like he's just trying to fit in on Earth, and he's just not trying to get found out. So it's curious if like maybe the Martians contact him and say like, hey, like why aren't you spreading like more of us to Earth or something like that. So that's where I'm at. I think right now he's really just serving as like a comic relief, but like you said, it's planting the seed for something bigger coming down the line, I think, with the Martians.
Yeah, I agree. I do believe that a lot of it was playing into that comic relief. What's it called? I fell into it. I loved it a lot. I loved his character. I do think also that it could be setting up something much bigger with his character. When he had that whole little meeting with that council. And he kind of like let them know, like, oh no, like there is like a half human, half Viltrumite, like he could be a prophecy almost sort of thing.
Oh, you're talking about Alan now.
Oh snap!
So
they do look similar. the orange.
You're right. You're right. I am mixing them up. Too many Martians.
we can talk about Alan. Like, I mean, we could go right into that, but
yeah.
If you have any thoughts on
the shapeshifter and the Guardians of the Globe.
Yes. I'm sorry, guys.
No,
they do look the same.
Thank you. All right. So then going into the shapeshifters, and I do want to get back into Alan. So
we should
just
because
Alan. I liked Alan a lot in this this season. The shapeshifter. Again, I do feel like it could be it's setting the states up for even just this, like everyone is like at this point scared of the idea of anything off of Earth, like being on Earth.
Yeah.
And it kind of it also sets the state as far as the other different types of beings and stuff out there. And so I don't know. I feel like it is a comic relief. I feel like it is very small. It could become bigger, but it could be bigger in the sense that it's just showcasing more that's out there,
right?
And it could be nothing more than that. But I am gonna
you should go right into
Alan with that because there is more out there.
Go right into Alan.
I really liked Alan's story. I completely messed those characters up, but I loved Alan's story. I feel like even with that together, I feel like those two Martians alone are setting up a world of extraterrestrial, I guess, beings, you could say. I don't know what you would kind of call them or classify them as. But Alan's story was good. I feel like Alan played a crucial role in also setting up a stake, as far as maybe Mark is some sort of prophecy. Maybe there is like he is so rare that he could be the one to bring down the Viltrumites that are at this point viewed as a threat universally. Like it's like everyone is like it's bad, and we kind of see that too, like kind of attack them in that moment. And so that was like our first kind of like view as to what these Viltrumites can do. And so I don't know, I liked his character a lot. I just said a lot all over the place with those characters, but however you guys want to pick up from that.
Talking on that, I just adored how episode 3 was presented. Like I thought, dude, it was super funny, the whole beginning of Mark is getting adjusted with college, and him and Amber, they end up making love, and there's a comedic moment, and it's cutting to Alan, who's also he comes back to his home, and he's making love with his significant other. I loved how the narrator just randomly pops in. The narrator's like talking about the cat. I thought that was super funny. I also loved how like the title, instead of it being like Invincible, it goes Alan the Alien. Like I just thought the presentation in that episode alone was great. But talking about Alan, I love his character. He's kind of like just super, he's lovably wholesome, and I think that I know some people they hate shock value in TV and movies, because it's just shock for shock and it doesn't really have any significance. But the shock, I adored how they use shock value in episode 3, where we are getting adjusted to Alan and we're really falling in love with him more. He was just a likable personality, but now like we're seeing his home life, we're seeing his dynamic with the council and like the responsibilities that he has. And then he's enjoying this nice food, boom, just like the Viltrumites take him, they blast a hole through the cafeteria ship thing he's in, and they just they kill him in space. They just they jump him, and I thought that was like what, like my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit.
I kind of forgot that happened.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, jeez.
I loved how unpredictable it was.
Yeah.
Because I did not expect that at all.
Yeah.
And however, speaking of predictability and unpredictability, later on we do find out that I don't know his name, but he was like the lead of the council.
I call him Optimus Prime.
Yeah,
you got it.
Prime.
You got it.
So Optimus Prime, you know, I did kind of expect him because like we never saw anyone else like explored upon in the council. And I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be him. Like he's the only one. Like if it were to just be a random person, then that wouldn't even be like it would just wouldn't hit. So it was a little predictable to find out that he is the mole. But everything else is just it was just really hit me. I loved the comedic aspects of episode 3. I loved the unpredictability with that whole fight with the Viltrumites and Alan. And then I also have a question for you guys is, you know, in this show, it feels like no one dies. You know, they have the technology to basically revive anyone. Do you think Alan is really dead? Or do you think, well, he is dead, but do you think he will be resurrected in some sort of way? Or do you think that's the end of his story?
I hope it's the end of his story. I like when series have stakes like that. And, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, civilian death isn't like serious, but when you kill so many civilians or like the bug world, like you kill all the civilians, it almost, you know, you don't have a connection with each and every one of them. So it has less weight than maybe Alan dying. So, I mean, I thought he was dead in space, and then they showed him in the chamber thing getting, I'm like, no way. Like he just got his stomach punched out and then his eye was out. I'm like, there's no way. And then Optimus Prime comes in and turns off the life support. So I think he's dead. I'm, you know, maybe his, well, I guess he didn't get to tell her, but maybe his girlfriend, you know, kind of takes the mantle of seeing out his mission. It is, I would like to see more of his legacy, but maybe not him. Because I do think it's good to have those stakes and have him die and to show that, you know, people aren't safe in this world, like named characters at least. Yeah. So, I love him. Seth Rogen does a great job with him. I was lulled into feeling like it was a safe episode. Like, oh, okay, we're just gonna follow Alan, you know, and then he just gets absolutely destroyed in space. I was like, wow, okay. So yeah, that's my overall thoughts on Alan.
I feel like I agree. I don't want him to still be alive. I hope that he's still dead. I love his character. I would love to see one more sort of like moment where him and Invincible could kind of like sit and interact. Those were moments I appreciated in season 1. But I do think it would be smart for him to stay dead. Just because for 2 reasons. He was created to destroy the Viltrumites, and he was supposed to be like that sort of like savior for them. But at the same time, he wasn't, and he was kind of advocating that like for Invincible maybe being that, not really just being like that, maybe like joining them and working together. But it also, again, it set that idea of maybe Invincible is this sort of prophecy, going back to that. And so putting that out there, I don't think that he is the person to do that. I think that he's almost like a messenger. And in those moments that we had with him interacting with Invincible in season 1, those were just kind of like, again, those breadcrumbs that kind of led us to this short little mini episode with him. Just again to show us how they met and why he's even telling them about this. And I think that's just, again, setting up Invincible's story and Mark's story a little bit more. So I do think that it would be smart if he stayed dead. And then had it just kind of then now like pushed it on to Mark, and, you know, and everything. But you know, RIP. It's like
hopefully
right.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Yes.
I totally agree with both of you guys. As much as I love this show, I think the biggest problem is that sometimes the stakes are reverted or like just you know, crushed in a very unsatisfactory way. And if they were to, I 100% agree, like don't bring Alan back, because then the stakes that you set up of like, holy shit, like a person of significance like this that you really like can die, for him to be brought back, and then it's it's an eye roll moment. I have a feeling that they may do that.
Yeah.
But as much, like I said, as much as I like the show, that's one of the biggest problems, and I wish they can stay away from that, because we see it in The Immortal.
Right.
Obviously, he's called The Immortal.
Yeah.
But like he keeps, he keeps being brought back and brought back, and like, I think he was brought back 2 or 3 times now. I don't, even Mark, which obviously like show is named Invincible, like it's gonna be about Mark, but like for Mark to be like in this absolutely like demolished state and then constantly be brought back, maybe hopefully we see this most recent battle where like his stomach is like, he's like holding his like intestines in his hands, and it's like, he's absolutely destroyed. Hopefully maybe he takes some damage. I like when characters like physically like have scars from their battle, and we see that damage is done to these characters, not only mentally and not only like on a character growth level, but like also physically, and that adds to the stakes of it. So hopefully Invincible season 2 and the second part can solidify that.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can wrap up with the Guardians of the Globe, I guess. I can go first because I was not a big fan of any of the storylines in this. I think Rex's character is funny because of the voice actor, but I don't really identify with anything he's doing. I thought the Immortal and the clone girl relationship that was kind of thrown in with that shower scene was really weird and out of place. I was like, what? And then the Beast Girl and the robot thing, again, I can appreciate what they're trying to do, but for me, it just kind of goes over my head. I'm not invested in those characters, and this didn't really get me on board with them anymore. So the Guardians of the Globe for me is the weakest portion of the show, and I'm not really invested right now. So that's my quick thoughts on it. But I'll pass it off to you guys to hear what you guys thought.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Beast Girl and robot does interest me a little bit more than everything else. The duplicate and immortal stuff was, like you mentioned, weird. I don't know if it was just thrown in there to basically just show that the immortal is like really just kind of a dickhead, or I don't know what it was, but yeah, it went over my head as well. And then the stuff with Beast Girl and robot, I just don't know what they're trying to set up here. Like obviously like showing the humanity in someone who couldn't live the life as a human previously. But I want to know, obviously it's early on, it's hard to judge, but if they were to just do nothing with this subplot, that would be like a waste of time.
Right.
Because as of right now, there's not any like clear objective with what they're trying to do with these two characters. So don't know. I really hope it's not a waste of time, because as of right now, it kind of leaning into that.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with both of you. I feel like their story was sidelined, and I'm happy it was. I'm glad we're all in agreement too that shower scene was weird like that. I'm glad with you guys. Yes. Yeah. And just out of place, definitely. I will say the only bit of, I guess, appreciation I have for them even being on screen was being able to see the after effect of now this group being that they came from being like basically like the Justice League that got slaughtered by Superman, and now you have like Young Justice basically coming up and taking that role.
Got the B team.
Yes, exactly. And so, and not only that, they're all basically kind of like teenagers if you think about that. And so like and so I guess through these sort of pointless, you could say, storylines, it was cool to see that like, oh wait, these are just like kids that are dealing with, I guess, their own stuff, and they're not like a real like
Mm-hmm.
they're not there yet. And so I kind of put more of then a spotlight on Invincible to play that superhero role while they were kind of like getting their shit together essentially. But it, to me, I just felt like it still wasn't needed.
Yeah.
Also because of how powerful and hard hitting everything that they weren't in was, you know, and I don't know, I think that there could have been more room to play with a few other storylines if you had kind of like taken a few of those other storylines out. I am a little interested in what could happen with that whole robot and
Beast Girl
storyline, but again, it still doesn't fully, you know,
Yeah.
get me there with them. I would like to see maybe a sort of group sort of battle, something with them that kind of like maybe could snap them back into the reality of like, no, you guys are like, you're supposed to be like this, like you're supposed to be protecting us, like you're supposed to be like playing this big role. And I don't know if we'll ever see that in this group. I don't know if it's possible. But again, I agree with you guys. I wish that their roles were a little bit more, you know, not
right.
as,
Yeah, right now it's the case of if you took out all of their scenes, would this season have changed? And the answer is no. Like if you took out all of their scenes right now, like nothing would have changed about the main story, and that's not always good. That's not great when you do that screen test. But you know, maybe it's just setting up like right now they're young and they're not experienced, and their, I guess, coming out party, their opportunity to save the world will be this Martian storyline. The Martians, they've infiltrated their group. If they can infiltrate the world, Mark can't obviously do that because he has his own issues. Like their claim to fame can be that they stopped like this Martian invasion from inside their own group. So I guess that they want to eventually get there, so they have to start making them characters now. And I guess it's just growing pains maybe. But right for right now with just part one, not too thrilled with their story, but we'll see where it goes.
So that basically wraps most of it up. Do you guys have any other like side thoughts or anything?
No, I think we covered just about everything. I guess, you know, we'll wait for January to get the next 4 episodes. Little odd how they did it, considering all the episodes are done. I know this wasn't delayed based on production issues. This was just they delayed it to do it as a mid-season finale. So yeah, I guess, you know, we'll wait and see how the season wraps up. Hopefully it keeps up the momentum on the nucleus of the story, and the Megamind and the Guardians of the Globe, they get a little bit better treatment. So we'll see. More.
Totally agree. So that was Invincible season 2 part 1. We'll wrap it up from there. So if you guys don't already follow us on Cinema Wave Media on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Threads, as well as Culture Wave Media, where you can find us on Instagram, go and do that, please. We appreciate the support. Remember to comment your thoughts on Invincible season 2 part 1. And I guess that will be us signing out.
Yeah.
If you guys want to.
Yeah, no, thanks for watching, and look forward to a lot more animated discussions with you guys and with all you listening and watching.
Yes, it's just the beginning.
Yeah,
very just the beginning. So I'm excited to keep going and great conversation with you guys. You know.
Yeah.
I'm Michael Peniston.
I'm Mark Jacobino.
And I'm Vinny Albano. And this is us signing off.